Since their loved ones were taken hostage in the 7th of October Hamas attacks, families have protested relentlessly against a government who they felt was failing them.
We won't stop reminding this bad government that saving life is more important than the war.
When Hamas launched a bloody surprise attack on Israeli border towns on the 7th of October 2023, they kidnapped around 240 hostages, 214 of them alive, men, women, children and even babies. After 14 days in captivity, Judith Tyranen and her daughter Natalie Shoshana were the first hostages to be released by Hamas, officially for humanitarian reasons. 4 days later, 2 other captives were released for the same reason. On the 27th of October, Israel began its ground offensive on Gaza. And 2 days in, the Israeli army made its first hostage rescue, 19-year-old soldier Ori Megidish, acting on specific intelligence of her whereabouts. Demonstrations broke out in mid-November in Israel demanding the hostages' return. Meanwhile, the Israeli army recovered the lifeless bodies of 2 of them from Gaza. Later that month, a march set off from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, calling for action from the Israeli government.
7 of my family members are kidnapped in Gaza. We need them back now at any price.
At the end of November, a 1-week truce enabled 105 hostages to be freed, mostly women and children, in exchange for 240 Palestinian prisoners. But the year ended with a botched operation in which the Israeli army mistakenly killed 3 hostages who were waving for help, provoking public outrage. Between February and June 2024, 6 captives were freed in Rafah and Nuseirat. Meanwhile, the UN sent a team to investigate allegations of brutal sexual violence in the aftermath of the October 7th terror attacks.
We found clear and convincing evidence that hostages during captivity were victims of sexual violence, including rape, and other forms of inhuman and degrading treatment and sexualized torture.
On the 27th of August, the Israeli army announced the rescue of Qaid Farhan al-Qadi from Gaza, a Bedouin from the Negev. Days later, the bodies of 6 hostages were found, among them 23-year-old American-Israeli Hirsch Goldberg-Pollen.
My sweet boy, finally, you're free!
In the aftermath, hundreds of thousands of people marched against the government. Over and over again, hopes of a ceasefire and hostage release deal had been raised, only to be dashed. Meanwhile, many deaths have been confirmed, with more suspected. Israeli intelligence suggesting in November that half of those still in Hamas captivity have likely died or been killed. A steady flow of bad news that fueled a further breakdown in trust between hostage families and the government. Benjamin Netanyahu holding a firm line, offering a ceasefire only if and when all hostages are freed, and refusing to promise an end to the war.